Hi, would you like to know how to be more obedient? Of course you would. It helps get rid of things like freedom, self-expression, and happiness. But being strictly obedient not only means you're contributing to a better world, it also gives you a life you'll enjoy living. So pay close attention so you can learn how to be more obedient. Think that the people controlling you are protecting you. You need to think that the people controlling you are doing so for your own good. That way you'll allow them to continue having power over you. It's the way any perpetrator wants their abuse victim to think. Wait for permission. You know inspiring people are just losers who tell you to live your life boldly and not wait for anybody to give you permission to take action and follow your heart. Instead, it's best to hide inside waiting for someone else to give you permission for when you can go outside, see your family, or exercise. Live in fear. You can't be obedient unless you're first constantly in fear. So be sure to pay very close attention to words and headlines that are designed to make you scared. Words like COVID cases and headlines constantly reminding you how many people could die rather than how many have died will help you. Believe censorship is protecting you. Instead of knowing you're an intelligent adult who can think for yourself, understand you need the supreme leaders of Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey to tell you what's true and hide everything else from you, to protect you from your own thoughts. It's not condescension, it's protection. Believe what the media tells you. As you watch propaganda constantly being fed to you by the media, just believe that the propaganda they're feeding you is true, because it's in English, not Chinese. So you can trust it. Treat safety as your life's purpose. Instead of being brave, just live in denial that death is part of reality as you enjoy your passionate pursuit of safety. But just know you can eventually come out of the coffin of your comfort zone once there's no more death in the world. Because then it'll be safe. Outsource your truth. Don't trust your perspective. It's not shaped by anybody but you. So it's probably just misinformation. Instead, for example, when you see that the overall death rate during this year of the deadly pandemic is a little bit less than the overall death toll of 2018, keep trusting the untrustworthy people who tell you it's deadlier than the factual numbers you're seeing on the CDC website. You're being gaslit. Bonus obedience! With your health and well-being, blindly trust computer programmers who have been found guilty in federal antitrust lawsuits. Never question corrupt authorities. When you see a supreme leader like Gavin Newsom sitting inside a restaurant in close proximity with 12 unmasked people, just know he didn't want you to find out. So it doesn't count. But keep doing what he tells you to do, even though it's obvious he doesn't think it's necessary to do what he's telling you to do. After all, he didn't get elected to a position of power to not have power over people. Don't think for yourself. When people around you are afraid of something that your heart and own critical thinking tell you you don't need to be afraid of, betray yourself and be afraid like everyone else. Instead of being a leader, you'll feel like you fit in by being a sheep. And sheep are some of the most inspiringly obedient animals in existence. As you suffocate your freedoms with the joy of obedience, you'll never have to wonder what it's like in North Korea, because you'll be living it. Enjoy being obedient.
Question for Professor Peterson. Why do you feel that someone's personal gender identity and pronouns infringes your free speech? Can one not also argue, based on your interpretation, that professors can use racial slurs in their classroom and that the inability to do so would violate their freedom of speech?
There's a difference between saying that there's something you can't say and saying that there are things that you have to say. And I regard these made-up pronouns, all of them, as the neologisms of radical PC authoritarians. Do you understand that? And I'm not a fan of that sort of person. And the reason I'm not a fan of that sort of person is because I've done my homework. I've read everything I can get my hands on in the development of authoritarian political systems, and I know the literature inside out and backwards. And I am not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest. And that's that. This whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
Well, no, I don't.
Men
I
and
really don't.
women
Go.
throughout history have fundamentally cooperated to push back against the absolute catastrophe of existence. A terrible death rate, the probability of chronic starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children with all the death that was associated with that, and to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men. When the Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means, if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands, assuming you had the competence, which you don't, you wouldn't have done any better. And even if you had, there would have been someone else waiting right behind you to shoot you the first time you actually tried to do anything good. And that's what happened to all the old guard who ran the damn revolution. Stalin rounded them all up and shot them, along with their families and millions of other people. So even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
Is being sensitive to offence such a problem, though? Like, we would have previously called that manners.
It's a terrible problem. So imagine you, okay, so the rule is you can't offend anyone, all right? Let's say you're speaking to one person, I can't offend you. All right, fair enough. What if I'm speaking to 10 people? Do I get to offend 1 in 10? How about 1 in 100? How about 1 in 1,000? You're going to come out on stage and you're going to say something important about something vital, and you're not going to offend 1 person in 1,000? Well, you can't say anything about anything important ever without offending probably the person you're talking to. Important speech about important issues, especially contentious issues, is instantly offensive.